Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. I hope that you are all well, and if you are new, thanks for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Today I am going to be confessing. I am going to be talking about some of the authors on my shelf that I have read and really enjoyed, but I still have several of their books unread sitting on my shelves. As many of you know, I am trying to read more of what's on my shelves this year. So I am going to share some of these authors with you. Many of them I even consider to be among my favorites. All of these authors, I think I have 16 to share with you, 15 or 16. I own at least 4 of their books, and I will confess how many of their books I still need to read. Okay, so let's start with TRACY CHEVALIER. I own 4 of her books. I read Girl with a Pearl Earring when I was in university, and I devoured this book. It blew me away. I was captivated by the way this was written. Since then, and that was a long time ago, I have always wanted to read more of TRACY CHEVALIER's books. I own 3 more. I own Remarkable Creatures, and this has been on my radar for quite some time, and I have almost picked it up, I would say at least 2 or 3 times, but for various reasons, I haven't yet. I also have At the Edge of the Orchard and The Last Runaway on my shelf. So there are 2 books that I have almost picked up and purchased a number of times. A Single Thread and Fallen Angels, because every time I see a TRACY CHEVALIER book, I kind of transport back to the experience I had of Girl with a Pearl Earring, and I think I need to get them so that I can experience that again. But I am not getting any more of her books until I've read the ones that are on my shelf. Next up is Fiona Davis. I own 4 of her books too. Fiona Davis writes historical fiction. All of her stories are set in New York, and you know I love books set in New York. I read The Masterpiece, which is set at Grand Central Station, and I really enjoyed it, and I was even in New York when I read it, so that was fun too. I then picked up Chelsea Girls, which is set at the Chelsea Hotel. My hope is that the hotel itself will become a character. You all know that I love when an author can make a place a character. I also picked up some of her backlisted books, The Dollhouse, which is her debut, and it takes place at the Barbizon Hotel in the 1950s, and The Address, which is about the Dakota apartments on the Upper West Side, where many celebrities have lived. So these last 3 sit on my shelf, unread, and since then she has published The Lions of Fifth Avenue, which is set at the New York Central Library, which I absolutely love. So I want to read that. And there's also the Magnolia Palace, which takes place in a mansion. And this year she has the Spectacular coming out, which takes place at Radio City Music Hall. So these are all places in New York that I know and love, and still can't believe that I haven't read more of Fiona Davis's books. But before I can pick up more of her books, which I want to, I have to read the ones that are on my shelf. Next on my list is an author that hasn't published anything in quite some time, and I own all 5 of her books. SARA GRUEN is a Canadian author and is probably most well known for her novel Water for Elephants, which I loved. And several years after I read that, I read At the Water's Edge, which I also enjoyed but didn't love as much. I have had her other 3 novels waiting patiently on my shelves for years. There's Riding Lessons, Flying Changes, and Ape House. So if you've read any of these, please let me know which one you think I should read next. Next up is a classic, John Steinbeck. I own 5 of his novels. Of Mice and Men is one of my all-time favorite books. I've actually read it a couple of times. I've also read East of Eden and really enjoyed it. I have Grapes of Wrath, The Pearl, and Cannery Row. Those are on my shelves. Once I do read these, which I think is totally doable even this year, I'd also like to try some of his nonfiction. I didn't even know until a couple of years ago that Steinbeck had written nonfiction. So I wouldn't mind checking that out as well. This next author, I own 7 of her books, Elizabeth Gilbert. I've read 3 so far. City of Girls just last year, The Signature of All Things, which I think this is probably my favorite so far of hers, and Eat, Pray, Love, which I read way before the hype and also really enjoyed it. The other 4 books that I own, I'm still interested in, although in varying degrees. Committed is about her marriage to Felipe, which I've never really wanted to read since I think I like her fiction better than her nonfiction, but I own it and should get to it since, a lot has also happened in Elizabeth Gilbert's life since her marriage to Felipe. I do want to read Big Magic. I think I will really enjoy that one. And I would follow, that maybe with Stern Men, which is also fiction. And I have The Last American Man. The Last American Man doesn't appeal to me as much, but maybe I will be surprised by it. Next is Chris BOHJALIAN. I own 7 of his novels, and I have to say, it's a miracle it's not more, because I am always interested in his newest releases, and I have been very good in not picking up any more, at least not yet, because the 7 that I own, I have only read 2. Midwives, which I picked up when it first was published a long time ago, but it sat unread on my shelves for many years. When I read it, I loved it, so I pick up other books by Chris BOHJALIAN if I saw them on sale, and I picked up 4 more. Finally, a couple years ago, I thought that I should start reading more of his work, and I decided to read an earlier novel, which was Water Witches. And I loved the concept, but really ended up not enjoying the book. So I think I kind of gave that book a 2 or 2.5 star rating. And I still have 5 others to try. So if you have read any of these, please let me know if you would recommend them and which one I should read. I have The Double Bind, The Guest Room, Buffalo Soldier, and Close Your Eyes and Hold Hands. Once I've read these, I'm very interested in reading The Lioness, Hour of the Witch, The Red Lotus, and The Flight Attendant. But of course, that's also dependent on how I get along with these books that are already on my shelf. My apologies if you can hear noises in my apartment, but I'm just going to carry on. The next author, I also own 7 novels and have read 2, and that is Ann Patchett. I buddy read Commonwealth with the lovely Gloria Z. Thompson. I will leave a link to Gloria's channel in the description box below, so please go check her channel out. I enjoyed it, but not as much as The Dutch House, which I devoured and loved and consider it to be one of my all-time faves. It has so much good about it. So I definitely want to read more from Ann Patchett. I have Bel Canto, which many people have recommended, saying that it's their favorite. So I want to read that. State of Wonder is also one that has been recommended to me many times. The Patron Saint of Liars, The Magician's Assistant, and Taft are ones that I haven't heard as much about. So if you are a fan of Ann Patchett, let me know where you think I should go next. Next up is Ken Follett. I own 8 of his books, and I've read 2 books by Ken Follett, and I loved them. Pillars of the Earth and World Without End. Such good books. I have yet to read the prequel, although I own it, The Evening and the Morning, and I also haven't picked up the follow-up book, which is A Column of Fire, because I want to read what I have. So I did attempt to start the Century trilogy, which you might have been able to tell from the picture, but these books are all commitments. They are gigantic. So I stopped reading at one point because I wanted to give the books the time that they deserved, and I wasn't able to do that. So the trilogy starts with Fall of Giants, then Winter of the World, and Edge of Eternity. And I'm both hoping the trilogy is as good as the Kingsbridge books are, and I'm also hesitant in case it isn't. So let me know what you think if you have read these. I also have 2 standalone novels by Follett, Night Over Water and The Key to Rebecca. I know nothing about them, and I might actually start with those and then try and tackle the bigger books later on. So you have probably figured out where this is going. I would love to say that it gets better, but it really only gets worse. The next author, I own 9 books from Alice Hoffman. I have read 3 of them. I was first introduced to Alice Hoffman with Here on Earth. Really enjoyed it. So I then read The Dove Keepers. Enjoyed that one too. Then last year, or maybe the year before, I read The Magic Lessons, which is the first book in the Practical Magic series, although not written first. So from the other 6 that still sit unread on my shelves, I would say that I am most interested in The Marriage of Opposites and The Museum of Extraordinary Things. The others I haven't heard as much about, but I have Turtle Moon, Skylight Confessions, The Ice Queen, and The World That We Knew. I know nothing really about these, so let me know your thoughts if you have read any of these books that I still need to get to. The next author is a Canadian icon. I've read 1 of the 9 books I own from Michael and Dante. I read The English Patient, which I found to be really dense and difficult to read, but I loved the movie. So I really want to read more from Michael and Dante, especially since he has given so much to Canadian literature. And, you know, so many people have recommended a number of his books to me over the years. So I have the collected works of Billy the Kid, Divisadero, I'm not sure how to say that, Warlight, The Cat's Table, Coming Through Slaughter, In the Skin of a Lion, Annal's Ghost, and Running in the Family. So if you are a fan, or if you have read any of these, you know, maybe you can let me know what I should read next. Emma Donoghue. I own 10 books from her. I have read 3 of them. Room, which I loved. Pull of the Stars, which I also loved. Her most recent, Haven, which slowly endeared itself to me. And that leaves 7 more, which I really want to read. Someone recommended Slammerkin to me many years ago now. And I am definitely interested in Frog Music, The Wonder, and Akin. The 3 that I don't know as much about are Hood, Landing, and The Sealed Letter. So hopefully I will get to some of these this year. Okay, well, I said it was going to get worse, and it does. Ellen Hilderbrand. Are you a fan? Which of her books would you recommend I read? Because I ask because I own 10 of her books, and I have only read 1 of them. I picked up her books because they look like they are summery, beach vibe, lighter, feel-good books. And this very well might be the case, I don't know. I've only read The Island, and it wasn't that amazing to me. So I am hesitant as to what to read next. It's not because I don't have any choices. I have many. Summer People, Nantucket Nights, Summerland, The Blue Bistro, The Love Season, Barefoot, The Castaways, A Summer Affair, and Silver Girl. All of them look great. They sound good. I love the setting. So hopefully I can pick one or two of these up for maybe a summer read, and hopefully I will enjoy them more than I did The Island. If not, then these will be maybe good donations. We'll see how that goes. Moving on to two authors that I own 11 of their books. First is Thomas King. I've read 4 of his books. The Back of the Turtle, I think, was the first book that I read by him, and really enjoyed it. I read 77 Fragments of a Familiar Ruin, which is still, I'm going to say, one of the best poetry collections that I've ever read. The Inconvenient Indian was excellent, and the last book that I read by him was Indians on Vacation, which he won a Stephen Leacock Award for, and it was good, but it wasn't my favorite. I still have 7 more sitting on my shelf. I have Green Grass, Running Water, Medicine River, Truth and Bright Water, and One Good Story, that one. These are all standalones. I also have 3 books that I think are part of his mystery series, but I don't know the order of those books, so I'm going to have to look that up. I have the Red Power Murders, A Matter of Malice, and Obsidian. So once I can double check on that series, then hopefully I can get around to reading some of those. I love Thomas King's writing, and I'm sure that I will be reading a couple of these this year. The next author is Joyce Carol Oates. I've read 1 of her books, Cardiff by the Sea, which was 4 novellas, and it was excellent. I own 10 more of her books. Now, she has like 40,000 books, so some of them are even under pen names. So it's not bad when it comes to, percentage of her books, but I really want to get to these. I have The Journal of Joyce Carol Oates, which, if I remember correctly, is the book that Eric Carl Anderson said would be a good place to start with Joyce Carol Oates. I also have The Lost Landscape, which I think might be a memoir, and I have Night, Sleep, Death, the Stars. I have Hazards of Time Travel, which I think is a great title. I also have What I Lived For, Son of the Morning, Solstice, Mysteries of Winterhorn, I think it is, or Winterhorn, and With Shuddering Fall. Now, if you notice details, you may have noticed that I own 11 books by Joyce Carol Oates, but I have a duplicate of With Shuddering Fall and never even noticed. So I really only need to read 10 more in this case. And I really know nothing about these books other than they are written by the amazing Joyce Carol Oates. And I loved what I have read of her, so I'm really hoping to enjoy more of these this year. I have 2 more authors to share. The first is John Irving. I own 12 of his books, and I want to read all of them. I've only read Until I Find You, which I liked but didn't come close to A Prayer for Owen Meany, which is definitely one of my all-time favorite books. I would say it's in my top 3 for sure. But I have 10 more. So The Water Method Man, Trying to Save Piggy Sneed, The Cider House Rules. I can't believe I haven't read The Cider House Rules yet. A Widow for 1 Year, The World According to Garp, another one that I'm surprised I haven't read. The Fourth Hand, The Hotel New Hampshire, In One Person, Setting Free the Bears, which I think is his debut, and Avenue of Mysteries. I have a strong feeling that I will find some more favorites in this bunch. The final author on my confessions list is Bryce Courtney. I own 12 of his books, and I've read 1.5 of them. The Power of One is one of my all-time favorite books, and the reason that I fell in love with Bryce Courtney. I also started the sequel, Tandia. And that was several years ago now, and I was about halfway through, and loving it. So it wasn't the book, it was me. But for whatever reason, I got away from it, and now I think like it's been too long. I need to start over on that one. Plus there's 10 more, and you can probably tell that none of them are small books. Four Fires and Brother Fish have been on my shelf a very long time. Tomo and Hawk, Whitehorn, Solomon's Song, Fishing for Stars, Jessica, Sylvia, The Persimmon Tree, and The Story of Danny Dunn are all part of this Bryce collection, and I really need to start reading them. Well, these are some of the authors on my shelf that I have more unread books than read books. Maybe I will check in near the end of the year and see how many of these I've been able to read, and hopefully it'll look better. So please let me know if you have read any of these books or authors, and maybe if you're feeling up to confessing as well, let me know which authors you have on your shelves that you have a lot of unread books. I look forward to hearing all about it and chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.